I'm Mike, the two-lane traveler, bringing you another road trip in video. If you've driven Route 66 or if you've investigated it at all, you've probably heard of the Gemini Giant. If not, I can tell you he is one of a class of roadside giants who've been nicknamed Muffler Men by the guys over at the amazing Roadside America website. He and several other Muffler Men dot the Route 66 landscape, and I'm here today to tell you about all of them. More than 20 Muffler Men are directly on 66 or within a mile of the famous highway. But first, I have to give you a little bit of background. There's no definitive description of what a Muffler Man is. Everybody has their own definition. Most everyone agrees that the first of these roadside giants was designed and created by Pruitt Fiberglass around 1962. Bob Pruitt owned the company and Bill Swan designed the first giant. He looked like a giant lumberjack, and he stood in front of the Lumberjack Cafe in Flagstaff, Arizona for many years. About a year later, Bob sold his company to Steve Dashew, who was the owner of International Fiberglass. Steve had big plans for these giants, and over the next decade, he created and sold several hundred of them. Lots of them still exist today. Many look like that very first lumberjack. But there are all kinds of Muffler Men and women all across America and even beyond. So what's my definition of a Muffler Man? He or she is a roadside giant that's directly tied to International Fiberglass, either built by them or built by modern-day artists who use original style molds to create their own versions of Muffler Men. Some look identical and some are unique. Let's take a look at some different kinds of Muffler Men. Lumberjacks like you've been looking at are called Bunyans by International Fiberglass, as in Paul Bunyan. Here's a clean-shaven Muffler Man. I always refer to them as classics. International Fiberglass just referred to them in their catalog as basic units. There are roughly the same number of classics as Bunyans still in existence. The classics and Bunyans were often modified to look like pirates, cowboys, astronauts, golfers, hamburger men, and many other things. Indian Braves and Indian Chiefs were versions of Muffler Men too. They aren't nearly as common as the other two, but there's still quite a few of them in existence. Miss America was the only female version. She wound up becoming part of a Uniroyal ad campaign, and she's now commonly referred to as a Uniroyal gal. Mortimer Snerds was another Muffler Man who had a unique head. For anyone who remembers Mad Magazine, he has a striking resemblance to Alfred E. Neuman. Some people refer to this guy as a happy half-wit, but I prefer Mortimer Snerds. The Texaco Big Friend was built specifically for Texaco gas stations and couldn't be purchased through IF's catalog. Texaco ordered 300 of these guys with the intent of having IF build 2,700 more. They suddenly canceled the ad program and had all 300 destroyed, or tried to anyway. Only 6 are known to have survived, making these guys very rare. I'll show you one on Route 66 in just a few minutes. Vikings started out as advertising for a carpet chain, but could also be purchased through the catalog. Similarly, Wagon Ho seated Pioneers were originally sold for a restaurant chain, but were also sold in the catalog. Standing Pioneers may or may not have been sold by IF, but they were clearly derived from the same mold. I mentioned other modern artists who have continued to create Muffler Men. The most prolific is Mark Klein in Natural Bridge, Virginia, who's been making Muffler Men for several years, many of which are on Route 66. Others include Bell Plastics in Hayward, California, Hubert Graham in Bolton, North Carolina, and the late Glenn Good of Gainesville, Texas. Most but not all of those types can be seen along Route 66. As I've said, there are quite a few, so let's get started. moving east to west from Chicago to Santa Monica, California. Let's go. The Cigars and Stripes Lounge has one of the newest Muffler Men standing on their roof. Located on Route 66 in Berwyn, Illinois, he's the first Muffler Man you'll encounter on your westbound trip. The next Muffler Man you'll encounter is the Gemini Giant. He used to stand next to the Launching Pad restaurant in Wilmington, Illinois. He's currently being refurbished, and when he returns, he'll be located in a park about a half-mile to the west, still overlooking Route 66 like he has for decades. The Gemini Giant is one of 3 astronaut Muffler Men known to be built, and the only one left in existence. The next stop is in Normal, Illinois. Carl the Ice Cream Man is almost exactly 1 mile west of Route 66 on College Street. He stands in front of Carl's Ice Cream Factory. He's one of the smaller Muffler Men built by Mark Klein. Next is Atlanta, Illinois, at the corner of Southwest Arch Street and Southeast Vine Street, where there's a lot going on. The first thing you'll see is the super rare, most originally restored Texaco Big Friend in existence, and he's standing right next to the American Giants Museum. On the other side of the museum is a beautifully restored Mortimer Snerds. Inside the museum is many other things made by International Fiberglass, including an Esso Tiger, Muffler Men heads, A&W Burger family statues, and more. As you leave the museum, you'll be looking straight across the intersection at Tall Paul, the oldest Muffler Man resident in Atlanta. He has over 2 decades on these other newcomers. This hot dog holding classic Muffler Man is an iconic part of the Atlanta landscape. But we aren't even done yet. Just out of our sight, but only a few blocks away, is the Country Air restaurant. Standing out in front is a new Mark Klein creation, Lumi the Pie Gal. That makes 4 Muffler Men and gals in this cool small town. But there's a lot more to come. Those 4 empty slabs next to the museum weren't put there for nothing. Stay tuned. So when is a Viking not a Viking? When he's a Southeast High School Spartan mascot in Springfield, Illinois. All 11 of the existing Vikings are originals built by International Fiberglass. No new ones have been manufactured, and this is the only one near Route 66. A better-known Route 66 Muffler Man in Springfield is the Lauterback Giant. He's been standing here since 1978, getting close to a half-century standing on this spot. Our next giant in Springfield isn't a Muffler Man at all, but he gets an honorable mention. Big Ron stands at Route 66 Motorhead's Bar and Grill holding up a huge Route 66 sign. He was built by Mark Klein as a replica of another class of giants built in the 1960s called Big John. There are only about 8 of the originals left. The last stop in Illinois is Pink Elephant Antiques, where Harley D resides in Livingston, Illinois. Harley is a lumberjack miniature, a 14-foot-tall version of the Bunyan, but with a different head. He stands off in a field overlooking the interstate. Another honorable mention is here, too. Some people call him the Surfer Dude, but he's the Beach Boy, built by Fast Fiberglass in Sparta, Wisconsin. A few of these giants can be found around the country, and he's still available in Fast's catalog, but he isn't a Muffler Man. You might notice that the Uniroyal gal that used to stand here is gone. She moved with the previous owners to Batchtown, Illinois, so she is no longer on Route 66. Another Big John statue is located at Chrisman Studio and Sculpture Park in St. Louis. He isn't a Muffler Man and he's in pieces, but I thought I'd mention him. There are so many 66 routings through St. Louis that he may or may not be within a mile of one, but if you want to look for him, he's there. The next one on the list is a Jesse James giant who's been laying in the backyard of a business in Cuba, Missouri for a long time. He's definitely a Muffler Man, and he's the only Jesse James known to exist. Megamare is a popular Mark Klein muffler man located at the Uranus Fudge Factory in St. Robert, Missouri. He lost his head in a storm a while back. Mark is working on repairing the giant, so hopefully he won't be headless much longer. The Food Court Chef is another Mark Klein creation located in a food truck court on Route 66 in Springfield, Missouri. Big A is the newest muffler man on Route 66, at least for now. He's also made by Mark Klein, and he stands at Gearhead Curios in Galena, Kansas. Big Bill is a Bell Plastics creation who visited several locations along Route 66 before taking up permanent residency at the Highway Cafe in Veneta, Oklahoma. A unique American Indian who is not a muffler man also resides there. He has an interesting backstory as well. The next stop is a 2-for-1 deal. Buck Adams Cosmic Curios has 2 giants standing out in front now. Both were made by Mark Klein. Buck Adams stood alone here for 5 years since 2019. In 2024, Stella Adam joined him. I believe she was the first Uniroyal gal Mark created. Across the street and down a couple blocks stands a freshly restored Bunyan muffler man, now known as Meadow Gold Mac. He used to be located in Crystal Lake, Illinois, before disappearing for a few years. He's back now. The Trading Post Big Chief in Calumet, Oklahoma, stands about a quarter mile from Route 66. Just on the other side of I-40. Back in 2007, when I took my first end-to-end Route 66 trip, he was standing right on 66 in Clinton, Oklahoma. The Second Amendment Cowboy is the only Route 66 muffler man in Texas. He was made by the late Glenn Good. He stands just east of the Cadillac Ranch and across I-40 from Route 66. The May Cafe Mannequin Lumberjack might be a controversial muffler man to some people, but this Albuquerque, New Mexico classic was produced by International Fiberglass and sold in their catalog. He may even have been a precursor to the lumberjack design. He can be seen from Route 66, though he's a couple hundred feet off the route atop the May Cafe. The Dude Man, or Honest John, is a longtime resident of Gallup, New Mexico, standing on the roof of a used car dealership about 400 feet off Route 66. He's a cowboy version of the classic muffler man. This Flagstaff, New Mexico Bunyan is a very special muffler man. This is the very first muffler man ever created. Bill Swan designed him for Pruitt Fiberglass before it became part of International Fiberglass. He stood in front of the Lumberjack Cafe before moving to the football stadium at Northern Arizona University, where he's been ever since. Don't forget to walk around to the other side of the stadium to see the other Bunyan. He was also standing at the Lumberjack Cafe, but didn't arrive there until a few years later. He came to Northern Arizona University at the same time. His claim to fame is a 1-second cameo in the movie Easy Rider. Chicken Boy is a famous muffler man with an unusual head. He stands on the roof of a building in Los Angeles, California on Figueroa Street. This is about a half mile from the later section of Route 66 between Pasadena and Santa Monica. The last muffler man associated with Route 66 is Sergio. He's a Bunyan standing in front of Quartz Auto Glass on Mission Street. This is a mile away from the original 1926 to 1937 route that ended at Broadway and 7th Street in Los Angeles. So those are the muffler men along Route 66, at least for now. If you were keeping count, there were 26 muffler men along the Route 66 corridor. 14 were directly on Route 66, and the other 12 were anywhere from a couple hundred feet to a mile away. Changes are always happening, though, so expect new giants to arrive, and maybe some old friends could disappear. Some of the things I'm aware of include that the Gemini giant will soon be completely restored and put in his new home in Wilmington, Illinois, in a park overlooking Route 66 again. Between now and the 2026 Route 66 Centennial celebration, 4 more Muffler Men are expected to be added as outdoor exhibits at the American Giants Museum in Atlanta, Illinois. A Muffler Man formerly standing in Grove, Oklahoma, is undergoing restoration and will soon be standing along Route 66 in Yukon, Oklahoma. Rumor has it that Tulsa, Oklahoma is getting a 4th Muffler Man in the near future as well. Now you're probably wondering where some of these lesser-known giants are located. I have a map that includes all of these Muffler Men along Route 66. I'll leave a link to the map in the comment section below so you can easily find them. I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.